The first time my daughter-in-law called me a vieja entrometida in my own kitchen, she was standing 3 feet from my hydrangea blue mug and didn't think I understood a word. She also didn't think I could hear her tell her friend on speaker that my signature was perfecta now, so the bank would no molestar. I didn't let on that I taught Spanish for 32 years. By sundown, I had labeled a manila folder, Cami, April. By the end of the week, that folder would hold the first proof that someone was trying to take my house. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon as we have new stories every day. Like and let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. I'm Margaret Maggie Cole, 66, retired professor from Northern Virginia Community College in Annandale. My little Cape Cod is in Burke, Fairfax County. White siding, black shutters, and hydrangeas so big in June they look like scoops of ice cream. My late husband, Tom, built the back deck in 1999. I still oil the boards every other summer, whether anyone notices or not. My son Jason is 38, an IT project manager who lives 20 minutes away in Springfield. He married Camila, everyone calls her Cami, last year. She's bright, stylish, and fast with a smile. She also assumed, immediately and persistently, that my head was as soft as the dinner rolls I keep in the freezer. The insult landed on a Sunday in April. I had chicken thighs sizzling in a pan, lemon and garlic fogging the window. Jason had run to pick up a folding table from his car, and Cami stayed behind, tapping messages in a group chat while I chopped parsley. When her friend called, Cami lifted the phone, speaker on, and started in Spanish. Sí, la vieja ni entiende. Te juro, la firma quedó igualita. La notaria dijo que está bien. The old woman doesn't even understand. I swear, the signature turned out identical. The notary said it's fine. Then she laughed, light and careless, because cruelty is easy when you think your target isn't in the room. I stirred the pan and said, in English, "Would you like jasmine rice or potatoes?" She waved me off and said into the phone, "Jasmine," because she thought I was asking her friend. She kept talking about el banco, la carta, hoy a las dos, the bank, the letter, today at 2, and I memorized the cadence while zesting lemon like nothing was wrong. I taught beginners who would show up with nervous smiles and leave conjugating 70 verbs. I taught warehouse managers learning Spanish to talk to their crews, and nurses who wanted to explain the flu shot kindly. I can translate a passing thread of conversation while deciding if the bread needs 3 or 5 more minutes. So I did what I always told my students when something didn't sit right. Document, don't dramatize. At 2:17 p.m., the landline rang, a number I didn't recognize. It was a bank's automated line asking if I would authorize a call about a home equity line of credit application. I pressed 2 for no. I wrote down the date and time. Then, I took a picture of the chicken on my stove because sometimes the small details tell the truth later. I keep a tin in my laundry shelf with every receipt that matters. Church choir potluck contributions, CVS prescriptions, Dominion energy bills. Dated, highlighted, clipped. The tin is a habit I got from my mother, who lived through lean years and never met a receipt she didn't love. I added the caller ID slip, then a sticky note. Cami, call 1, firma igualita, bank, 2 o'clock. Monday, I drove to the Burke branch of the bank named on the automated message, parked under a sapling with bright new leaves, and told the teller, I received a call about a HELOC that I did not apply for. She handed me a phone so I could talk to the fraud unit. A woman named Karen Lee came on, calm, efficient, like a school nurse who carried a faint scent of peppermint. Miss Cole, I see a home equity line of credit application submitted yesterday afternoon. The application includes a power of attorney form naming your daughter-in-law as your agent. My what? Your daughter-in-law, Camilla R. Cole. I felt the butter from the pan rise in my throat. I did not sign a POA. I did not apply for a HELOC. Karen took notes, then said, "We have not funded anything. The application is pending. I'm flagging this and putting a hold. I'll email you a secure link to upload an affidavit, and if you can visit the branch with identification, we'll notarize your signature for free. Do you mind if I ask, do you have a notary name or any details?" I wrote what I had. Notaria, hoy a las dos, firma igualita. Karen was quiet for a moment, then said, "If you didn't sign and someone is using a forged POA, we'll escalate to our fraud investigation team. Please also consider reporting to local authorities. This is financial exploitation of an older adult." I thanked her, hung up, and drove, not to the police, my heart wasn't ready for that yet, but to my choir rehearsal. The soprano line in "How Great Thou Art" steadied me. On my way home, I swung by the county's Land Records Division in Fairfax. I asked the clerk if any documents had been recorded under my parcel number lately. She typed, frowned, then said there was an e-recorded General Durable Power of Attorney logged at 2:06 p.m. the previous day, referencing my address. "May I purchase a copy?" I asked. 10 minutes later, I was holding 8 pages in a manila envelope. The signature on page 7 was mine and not mine. My name sat like a tracing over my real pen strokes. The G in Maggie formed with a neat loop I never use. The notary stamp was from a woman in Woodbridge with a commission number and an expiration date next year. I drove home and put the document under the refrigerator magnet shaped like a black cat, Tom's joke gift from 1987. I took a photo, I made tea, then I called Jason. "Mom, everything okay? Did you apply for a HELOC with Cammie as my agent?" There was a pause that turned his voice thin. "What? No. Why would we? We talked about borrowing for the kitchen remodel. We talked about ideas, but no. Why?" I told him. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I'll ask her. Please don't, not yet. I need to see what else is happening." He hated that answer, but agreed. He always was a good kid. Even now, with eyes tired from project deadlines. Tuesday, a white envelope arrived from the HOA. Notice of violation, exterior fence height. I've had the same fence since 2003, and it's exactly the legal height. The letter gave me 15 days to lower it or pay a $100 fine. The before photo they attached was my yard, but the date printed on the bottom showed April 7th, 9:02 a.m., 2 hours before the fog lifted that day. The grass in the photo was summer green, not spring choppy. It felt staged. HOA fines can be pressure. I made a new folder. HOA, April. I emailed my neighbor, Lynn, who treats our court like a little village. I asked if she had seen anyone measuring fences. She replied within 10 minutes. 2 men in neon vests Monday afternoon. One kept saying, "Just take the pic," but they didn't ring any doors. I asked if she had seen who they were with. One had a clipboard with RR Home Solutions on it, she wrote. I Googled. The company's Instagram showed glossy before-after shots and a story highlight that afternoon. A plate of tacos and a caption, "Power lunch with Cammie C. Big project loading." I took screenshots and printed them. My laser printer whined like it knows too much. That evening, Jason and Cammie came by with a casserole. One of those neighborly gestures that tastes like fog when you don't trust the cook. We ate on my deck. Cammie wore white linen and gold hoops, the kind you buy to feel invincible. She smiled and asked me about my hydrangeas in English. Her phone lit up with a message preview. Notario listo jueves. Notary ready Thursday. When I cleared plates, she followed me to the sink and stage whispered to her phone. "No se ha dado cuenta. El banco pide otro copia. Tranquila." She hasn't realized. The bank is asking for another copy. Calm down. I set the plates down too hard, and one fork clanged, a small betrayal. She looked up at me like a cat that pretends it didn't knock over the vase. I smiled. "More lemonade?" Wednesday morning, I visited my church office and asked Linda, our secretary, to print the choir attendance sheet from Sunday, signed by me at 2:10 p.m. Then I drove to Trader Joe's on Burke Center Parkway. I remembered buying frozen blueberries right after the phone call, so I asked the manager if he could print a copy of my receipt from my rewards number. He did. It showed 2:23 p.m., register 3. I asked, "Do you keep surveillance recordings?" He said they keep them 10 days and offered to pull the exact minutes if I brought a police report. I told him I'd be back. At the notary's office in Woodbridge, the receptionist recognized me from the document copy I carried. "Oh, that was remote," she said. "Our notary did it by video." "Was I there by video?" I asked. She looked uncomfortable. "We can only disclose to law enforcement or upon subpoena, ma'am." "I understand," I said, and left. Remote online notarization. Someone had held up a license that looked like mine to a camera. I never thought I'd miss the days when a notary watched your hand make ink move. I called Karen Lee. She connected me to their fraud investigator, a quiet man named Miguel Ortiz, who said, "Miss Cole, if someone used a remote notary with a false identity, we can work with their platform to pull the session logs. In Virginia, we can also ask the notary to produce their journal entry. Could you provide any receipts that place you elsewhere at 2:06 p.m.? "I can do better," I said. "I can provide timestamps, a church attendance sheet, a grocery receipt, and video once I get a case number." He exhaled like a man who had found a puzzle piece that clicks. That afternoon, the HOA emailed a second notice. Violation, unapproved exterior improvements. It referred to planned demolition of rear deck, with a photo of 2 men pointing at my deck boards. The photo's timestamp said 5:38 p.m. The men were from RR Home Solutions. I had not hired anyone to demolish my deck. I felt my chest tighten, a small accordion of panic. I dialed the HOA office and left a message. "This is Margaret Cole on Fieldstone Court. I dispute these notices and request board meeting minutes related to any inspection of my property." Then I started calling RR Home Solutions. No answer. At 7:11 p.m., my doorbell rang. A man in a branded polo and a low baseball cap smiled. "Evening, Miss Cole. We're scheduled to begin prep on the deck Monday. Just confirming access and the lockbox code for the side gate." "What lockbox?" "Cammy said you'd leave a lockbox. She's your..." He looked past me. "This the wrong house?" "This is the right house," I said, "and nothing happens here without my signature." He shrugged, checked his phone, and ambled off. I wrote down his license plate because my mother raised me to write down license plates when men amble off after saying stupid things. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the sound of Cammy's voice saying, "La firma quedó igualita," identical. I kept picturing someone drawing my G. I also pictured Jason, sweet Jason, with the cowlick that never listens. Was he in on this or just asleep at the wheel? I didn't know. I prayed for clarity and for patience, because the combination keeps you from doing something you'll regret. Thursday morning at 9:05 a.m., I walked into the West Springfield Police Station and filed a report: suspected forgery, attempted financial exploitation, identity theft. The officer, a woman around my age with a bright lipstick that said she refused to shrink, took my statement and assigned a case number. She promised to forward it to a financial crimes detective. 10 minutes later, I was at Trader Joe's, and the manager burned me a copy of the camera footage showing me humming to myself at 2:20 p.m., comparing blueberry brands like I was choosing a college. By noon, an email hit my inbox from the HOA board secretary with a PDF of the April meeting minutes. Highlights: discussed 12421 Fieldstone fence height complaint, filed by RR Home Solutions. Expedite enforcement. And noted potential deck demo at same address, per contractor. Owners DIL coordinating. The minutes didn't include that the complaint came from a contractor who wanted the job. I printed them and put them in the tin. At 2 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Jason. Mom, did you tell the bank something? The bank had called him to verify spousal involvement. He wanted to know what was going on. I wanted to say so many things. I settled on one. I'm working with the bank. If you love me, let me handle this my way for 2 days. He responded with a single word, okay. Friday, I drove to the county recorder again and asked if anything else had been recorded on my parcel. The clerk frowned. There's a quitclaim deed that was submitted and bounced for a formatting error. It hasn't been recorded yet. Want a copy of the rejected file? I nodded. The deed attempted to transfer an undivided 50% interest in my home from me to M. Cole and J. Cole as joint tenants. The signature was the same traced Maggie as before. The notary stamp was the same Woodbridge remote notary. The stated date was the previous day, Thursday, at 10 a.m. The notary's journal, when the detective would get it, would show what I already knew. I was in line at the post office at 10 a.m., renewing a passport to visit my sister in Arizona later this year. I went home and set the stack of papers on my kitchen table. I looked around at the life-built, board by board. Tom's handwriting on the inside of the pantry door, where he wrote, "Don't buy cumin, we have 5. The picture of Jason in 5th grade with a double crown of cowlicks. The cup of knitting needles stuck in a jam jar that used to hold peach jam summers ago. No one was going to move me like a pawn. I printed a photo from 10 years ago, my retirement ceremony. Me in a navy blazer, a poster behind me that said, "Viva el Español." I slid it into the folder labeled Cammy, April. I wrote on a Post-it and stuck it to the photo. She doesn't know who I am. Then, I started a new checklist on the back of a piece of junk mail. Bank affidavit filed? Yes. Police report? Yes. Trader Joe's video? Yes. Choir attendance sheet? Yes. HOA minutes? Yes. Instagram screenshots? Yes. Notary platform logs? Request pending. Talk to Jason? Not yet. I slept that night with one eye open and my phone on my nightstand, screen down. The morning would require theater. Saturday, I called Cammie and invited her to brunch at a cafe near the Burke Center Library. Just us, I said. I'd love to hear about your new job. I wanted her at a table with good light and bad acoustics, the kind of place where conversations blur and recordings are clean enough to hear intent. Virginia is a one-party consent state for recordings. I confirmed it twice, then set my phone to start recording when I tapped the rightmost corner. I planned to tap that corner as I wiped my napkin. I also called Detective Alvarez, the financial crimes detective who had been assigned my case overnight. I asked if he would be available Monday to meet with the bank and the notary if needed. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "And Miss Cole, don't confront her alone." "I won't," I promised. I would do something worse for her. I'd listen. Brunch started with mimosas and compliments. "You look lovely," I told Cammie, and she did. She thanked me and answered questions about a real estate project she was helping with. She used the word helping so many times it began to dent. "You know, it's hard for older folks to navigate paperwork," she said brightly. "I'm just trying to make things easier." "For whom?" I asked. "For the family." She smiled as if she had said, "For orphans." I wiped my napkin and tapped the corner of my phone. She leaned in. "You've been so independent," she said. "But imagine not having to worry about roof repairs. Imagine remodeling your kitchen, new countertops, all covered. A HELOC is smart." "Is it?" I asked. "Is a forged POA smart?" Her smile didn't move. It held like a mask. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying," I said. "I'm asking." She lifted her water and glanced over my shoulder as if waiting for a cue. "I don't know those words mean," she said, and I wondered how many times in her life she had told the truth that way. We finished our eggs. She kept her cool. I kept my receipts. When we stood to leave, she hugged me and said into my hair, so low I almost missed it, "Todo va a estar bien." Everything is going to be fine. It was not a comfort. It was a signal to someone else that their plan would proceed. Back home, I uploaded the recording to a fresh cloud folder titled April, Spanish. I translated the phrases she used and added subtitles. No need to be fancy, just accurate. Then I printed a transcript. I titled it Cole v. Confusion, because humor helps when the stakes are your house. At 5 p.m., my doorbell rang again. 2 men I didn't recognize stood there, the RR Home Solutions logo stretched across their chests. We're dropping off the dumpster for Monday. No, you're not, I said, and handed him a copy of the police case number. You step on my property again without my written consent, I'll call the police and they will call your boss by name. He smirked. Fine by me. He glanced at my front yard and muttered to his buddy, in Spanish, vieja loca, crazy old woman. I smiled with all my teeth. He went to a truck and drove off, leaving a smear of irritation on my Saturday. I made myself a small dinner, a baked sweet potato with butter and cinnamon, a side of steamed green beans, a glass of cold milk, because milk makes me feel 9 and invincible. I watched the 6 o'clock news and then went to bed. Tomorrow, Sunday, would be for church, choir, and pretending not to be plotting. Monday would be for justice. On Monday morning, I put on my navy blazer, the one from my retirement photo, and a pair of comfortable flats. I packed a binder with plastic sleeves. Each sleeve had a tab: bank, notary, HOA, contractor, receipts, video. I printed a cover page, Cole v. Confusion, because humor helps when the stakes are your house. At 9:50 a.m., I took a seat in the bank conference room with Karen Lee and Miguel Ortiz. At 10:05, a notary in a gray suit, nervous, clutching a messenger bag, arrived with her platform's logs. At 10:10, Cammie walked in, neutral-toned like an expensive candle, and sat at the far end of the table. Her posture was the sort you practice in front of a mirror. Miguel began. Miss Cole, you're here to contest a POA submitted in your name. Miss R. Cole, you're here as the purported agent. We're recording this meeting. Cammie smiled. Of course. Let's start with the notary, Miguel said. The notary opened her laptop and winced. The session, purportedly with Miss Cole, shows an ID with the name Margaret Cole, but the photo does not match. The background appears to be a white tile bathroom. Miss Cole, does your bathroom have white tile? I said, I do, but the lighting in the video is fluorescent green. Mine is warm, soft white. Also, I don't wear hoop earrings. The video paused on a still frame of a hand holding my license. The ring finger had a distinctive knuckle scar I do not possess. Karen slid a paper across the table. Miss Cole, this is your affidavit. Miss R. Cole, do you have the original POA document? Cammie's hand hovered over her bag, then paused. I think Jason has it. Karen nodded slowly. That's fine. We have a copy. Miguel asked the notary, who scheduled the session? She read from her log. An account created by Helping Hands Realty at... She stopped and looked at me, then at Cammie, then at the cable top. We'll provide the full address to Detective Alvarez. Detective who? Cammie asked, and for the first time, her voice blinked. The one copied in our emails, I said. You'll meet him at the county register after lunch. I didn't add that he already had a copy of the Instagram taco story with the caption, Power Lunch with Cammie C. Miguel turned to me. Miss Cole, do you consent to us halting this application and flagging any related attempts? I do. He turned to Cammie. Miss R. Cole, do you wish to proceed without a valid POA and without Miss Cole's consent? She lifted her chin. I'm trying to help my family. I slid my retirement photo across the table, the one that says, Viva Español. Her eyes flicked to it and then to me. I looked back with the calm of a woman who can parse the subjunctive mood in her sleep. Karen stood. Meeting adjourned, she said gently. We'll be in touch with law enforcement. Cammie left without looking at me. I sat for a minute and felt the knot below my sternum loosen. At 1 p.m., I walked into the county recorder's office with my binder, my purse, and a thermos of tea. Detective Alvarez met me with a nod and the exact kind of tie you trust. We sat at a table under a buzzing light. He unfolded his pad. The clerk brought over a copy of the rejected quitclaim deed and a rubber stamp marked refused. We waited. At 1:09 p.m., Jason walked in, hair mussed, eyes red. He sat beside me and took my hand under the table. Mom, I'm sorry, he whispered. I had no idea. I squeezed his hand so hard he winced. At 1:12 p.m., Cammy appeared, realized the notary wasn't there, and turned on her heel. Detective Alvarez was faster. "Ma'am," he said, and stepped into her path. "We have some questions for you." She breathed in and out, and then smiled again, as if her mask had a backup behind it. "Of course," she said. The clerk stamped the quitclaim, "Refused," in big red letters. The sound it made, the clap of rubber on paper, felt like a future returning. We moved from the county recorder to a small interview room at the West Springfield station. The room smelled like pencil shavings and coffee. A legal pad and 2 pens sat on the table. Detective Alvarez clicked on a recorder and asked if he could take a statement. Cammy agreed. She folded her hands and told a careful story about help and confusion and culture, as if the words themselves could push back what paper and timestamps already said. I kept my mouth shut. I had learned after decades of grading essays that people tell you who they are if you let silence sit. Cammy said again that older adults need assistance. She said I wanted to remodel the kitchen. She said the notary session had been glitchy and that maybe the camera made my face look different. She said she thought the HOA was helping by expediting approvals. She slipped and said in Spanish, "La firma quedó igualita." The signature turned out identical. She caught herself and smiled. Detective Alvarez clicked off the recorder. "Thank you," he said. "We'll be in touch." He walked us to the lobby and then turned to me. "Miss Cole, may I have your binder for copies?" I handed it over. "I have a duplicate at home," I said. He nodded like he'd expected that. Jason and I sat on a hard bench outside the station. He put his head in his hands. "I'm sorry," he said again, louder to the linoleum. "She said a HELOC would build equity and help us all. She said you'd be thrilled to redo the kitchen. She said she had your permission. I didn't sign anything without you. I thought she was handling paperwork like she handles everything, with confidence." I know. Confidence isn't competence, and competence without consent is theft. He laughed, a broken sound that tried to be a laugh and failed. "You always talk like a professor, Mom." "I am one. Am. I rubbed his back the way I did when he was 8 and thought math homework might eat him. "We'll fix this, and I'll make chicken tonight." He nodded. At home, I cooked a quiet dinner. Roasted chicken thighs with lemon, garlic, and potatoes that crisped at the edges. Green beans bright enough to taste like June. Jason ate slowly. He texted someone, then put the phone face down. "I told her I needed space," he said. The words sounded like someone else's, new in his mouth. She said, "I'm betraying her." She said, "You're manipulating me." He exhaled. She said it in English. "Good," I said. "Let her speak plainly." The next morning, I woke to an email from the HOA board. Upon review, the violation notices for 12421 Fieldstone Court are rescinded. We apologize for any inconvenience. The last line said, "Please note, contractors may not file complaints on behalf of owners." I smiled. Someone had read their own rules. At 10 a.m., Miguel Ortiz called. "Ms. Cole, we obtained the notary platform logs. The IP address used to upload the ID originates from a mobile device tied to RR Home Solutions. We also have the account email at Helping Hands Realty at. It's linked to a brand new domain registered last month. The ID image shows a telltale light refraction consistent with a screen photograph, not an original. Detective Alvarez has the files." "Thank you," I said. "Also," Miguel added, "we have permanently blocked your account from any remote POA submissions and put an alert on your property profile. No HELOC will be opened on your home without your physical presence. It's the most we can do internally. The rest is law enforcement." "You've done a lot," I said, and meant it. At noon, Detective Alvarez and I met with a notary in Woodbridge. She was thin, with worry carved along her mouth. "I thought it was her," she said, voice shaking. The lighting was bad, the ID looked consistent, the agent was calm. She said Miss Cole had trouble using video and that she was assisting. "Did you check the journal?" Alvarez asked. She opened a blue hardcover and smoothed the page. "Sunday, 2:06 p.m., General Durable Power of Attorney. Principal, Margaret Cole. Agent, C.R. Cole. Thumbprint, none."
She looked up. Remote sessions don't require prints. She tapped the time. If she was at church at 2:10, I was at Trader Joe's at 2:23, I said, and we slid a still image of me squinting at blueberries like a scholar.
The notary closed her eyes. "Oh, cooperate fully," she said. "I'm so sorry." I believed her. A bad actor had used her platform's cracks. She would spend the next month patching them with a level of caution that would keep other women safe. Keep watching. There will be justice. Wednesday brought a knock I didn't expect. A zoning officer with a clipboard. "Ms. Cole, we received notice that RR Home Solutions pulled a demo permit on your property without owner authorization. Is that correct?" "It is," I said. "I did not authorize." He nodded. "We're revoking it today and issuing a fine to the contractor for misrepresentation. If they set foot on your deck, call us and the police." "I will," I said, and offered him a bottle of cold water from the fridge. He took it, grateful. It was already 80 outside. By Thursday, a small circle of people had done their jobs quietly and well. The bank, the detective, the notary who corrected her error, the HOA that rescinded, the zoning office that enforced. The only person who hadn't sat with the truth was Cammie. I decided the truth would sit with her. I invited her to meet me at the Burke Lake Park Trail, a place with dappled light and enough joggers to keep tempers cool. She arrived in gym clothes that never met sweat. I wore a baseball cap and carried 2 coffees. "We can walk," I said. We walked. She said, "First, I care about family. Everything I did was to make life easier." "Everything you did made my pulse race for 4 days." "I'm sorry if you were scared," she said. "That wasn't my intention." "What was your intention?" I asked. She didn't answer. She kept walking. A lake breeze moved across the surface like a hand smoothing sheets. There's a thing older women know. We know the difference between help and takeover. Help asks before it acts. Takeover acts and calls it help. She smiled. "You're clever." "I'm observant," I said. "Clever is for crossword puzzles." We reached a bench and sat. I opened the coffees and handed one to her. "I'd like to offer you a way to leave this with dignity," I said. "You can sign a statement disavowing the POA and any claim to my property. You can apologize to the HOA, to the bank, and to me. You can pay the fine for the contractor you brought into this, and you can walk away from this marriage if what you wanted was a house, not a family." Her smile evaporated so completely it felt like a trick of light. "You don't get to tell me how to live. You don't get to threaten me with my own husband." "I don't threaten. I report. And I record." She looked at the phone and then at me. "Do you even know what we said at brunch?" She finally switched to Spanish, the language she thought was a safe little house behind a fence. "I know every word," I said in the same language, my accent the same one that filled classrooms for 30 decades. "Soy profesora de español. I am a professor of Spanish." Her mouth fell open. "¿Qué?" "Escuché cada cosa. La firma quedó igualita. El banco no va a molestar. La notaria dijo que está bien. Yo entiendo. Y tengo pruebas." I heard everything. The signature turned out identical. The bank won't bother. The notary said it's fine. I understand. And I have proof. She sat very still. Then she laughed once, a sound with no amusement in it. "You tricked me." "No," I said. "You underestimated me." She stood, tossed her untouched coffee in the trash, and walked away. An hour later, Jason texted. She moved out. Friday, a formal letter from the bank arrived. Application denied due to suspected fraud. It included an apology for distress and a promise to monitor my account for irregularities. The HOA email thread ended with, "Ms. Cole, we've updated our complaint policy." My mailbox felt like a basket of small, square wins. Saturday evening, I set the table with Tom's old camping plates because they're ugly and perfect. Jason came over with a list of questions: divorce lawyers, leases, budgets. We talked until the ice melted in our glasses twice.
I didn't see it, he said again, while we packaged leftovers in small containers he could reheat in the microwave of a condo that would likely be too quiet for a while. We don't see what we don't want to until we do. Then we can never unsee it. And that's a blessing and a bruise. Sunday, church was steady. The alto, who always sings a hair flat, corrected herself without prompting. After service, Linda pressed my hand and said, "Heard you had a week." I laughed. I had a semester. She hugged me like only church ladies can, brief and bone deep. Monday, Detective Alvarez called. "Miss Cole, the Commonwealth attorney is moving forward with charges: attempted forgery of a public record, identity theft, attempted financial exploitation. RR Home Solutions is being investigated for permit fraud. We'll need you to testify about the notary session you did not attend." My heart did a complicated thing. A little pity for the girl who thought she could build a life out of other people's signatures, and a lot of relief for myself.
2 weeks later, we stood in a courtroom that looked like every television courtroom, only warmer. Cammie's lawyer tried to frame everything as misunderstandings, cultural differences, and misguided attempts to help family. The prosecutor submitted the bank logs, the video stills, the HOA minutes, the zoning revocation, the Instagram taco story, and my recorded brunch transcript, with a translation I had carefully reviewed for accuracy but hadn't touched. He also submitted the notary's journal page and the platform's note about the IP address originating from RR Home Solutions. The judge listened and asked easy, precise questions, my favorite kind. When it was my turn to testify, I told the story the way I'm telling it to you, with dates, times, and something like love. Love for the person I am who finally believed her own ears. Love for Jason, who chose truth over convenience. Love for the little house that held us through grief and groceries and now this. I spoke in English. At the end, the prosecutor asked, "Do you speak Spanish, Miss Cole?" "Sí," I said. "Fui profesora de español por 32 años." Yes, I taught Spanish for 32 years. The courtroom rustled. Cammie looked at me then, really looked, and shook her head once, like she couldn't believe the sky was blue. Her lawyer placed a hand on her arm. In the hallway afterward, she approached me. There were no cameras, just a vending machine humming. "Why didn't you tell me you understood?" she asked. "Because you wouldn't have told the truth. You only tell the truth when you think no one is listening." She blinked. "What happens to me now?" I said, "You make amends. You leave Jason free. You tell the bank and the HOA you're sorry. You pay back whatever you owe. You find something kind to do that doesn't require anyone's signature but your own." She opened her mouth like she would argue, then closed it and walked away. 2 months later, I heard she took a plea deal. Probation, restitution to the notary's platform and the bank for investigative costs, community service, and a ban from handling financial paperwork for anyone but herself for 5 years. RR Home Solutions paid a hefty fine and lost their permit privileges in the county for a year. The HOA changed its rules so contractors couldn't weaponize complaints, and the board president sent me a handwritten apology on textured paper that made the pen skip. Jason signed a lease on a 2-bedroom near Kingstown. He bought a couch that didn't pretend to be leather and a rug that looked like a prairie at sunset. He learned to roast vegetables properly and to check the mail like it might contain a snake. He asked me over to hang pictures, and I brought my level and a small bag of nails because I am my father's daughter, too. One night, we ate takeout on the floor because the couch was late. He said, "I should have noticed." I said, "You notice now." He nodded. "I don't know how to forgive her," he added. I said, "You don't. You let the justice system handle justice, and you handle your life. Forgiveness is a door you can open later if you ever want to, not a prize you owe to anyone today." When the first hydrangea bloomed that June, I cut a stem and put it in a simple glass on my kitchen table. The blue was decadent, ridiculous, perfect. I baked a peach cobbler for the choir picnic and tucked a copy of my homeowner's title policy into my binder because I now believed in redundant protection.
I took a call from a neighbor who asked if I could help translate for her new cleaning lady, and I did, because language is a bridge, and I know how to lay planks. Don't click away, he'll get what's coming. In late summer, a letter arrived from the Virginia Attorney General's Consumer Division, thanking me for reporting the contractor's permit manipulation and the deceptive emails connected to a sham Helping Hands domain. It explained, in bland government language, that my complaint helped them warn other older homeowners that the domain had been shut down and that the platform updated its verification process. I placed the letter on my fridge next to Tom's black cat magnet and a crooked photo of me and Lynn at the neighborhood block party, hair frizzy and smiles wide. One evening, I sat on the deck Tom built and watched the sun set behind trees that hadn't been saplings in a long time. I ran my hand along the railing where it dips, the place where he mismeasured once and cursed softly, then fixed it, better than before. The birds quieted until the night hummed. My phone pinged with a message from an unknown number. Lo siento, it read. I'm sorry. It wasn't signed, but I didn't need it to be. I set the phone face down and let the apology pass through me like a breeze. Noted, not needed. The next morning, I taught a free Spanish class at the community center to a group of women with silver in their hair and grit in their eyes. We practiced how to say, "No, that's not what I agreed to," and "I'll have a copy of that," and "Please speak slowly." We laughed. One of them asked why I cared so much. I said because language is power, and because if anyone is going to call you vieja, you should know exactly what they mean and whether they're saying it with love. I still cook Sunday chicken. I still keep the tin of receipts on the laundry shelf, now with a label maker tape that reads receipts and proof. I still sing alto and still hum when I shop. I still carry my phone like armor and like a bridge. And I still love my house, not because it's a thing you can take on paper, but because it's a place that has me in it. My son came over last night to help me move the cast iron skillet to a lower shelf. We ate leftover cobbler cold and pointed at stars between tree branches. He leaned his head on my shoulder. He's taller than Tom was, but he leans the same. If you're a woman in your 60s or 70s watching this in your living room with a cup of tea and your feet wrapped in a throw, hear me. Keep your papers. Photocopy your ID. Know your county clerk's name. Ask questions out loud. You are not an inconvenience. Your signature is your voice in ink. And if someone thinks you don't understand, let them talk long enough to show you exactly who they are. This is my personal experience, shared for awareness and entertainment. Stay safe, keep your receipts, and never underestimate the power of a well-timed perdón when someone thinks you don't speak their language.
My grandmother told me this story. Thanks for watching this video. Bye bye!